General National Senior Citizen Center, NSCC. Madam, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. Always good to be here.
All right. And also with us here in the studio is Dr. Ogogwa Otsi Obu, consultant physician and geriatrician, head of Geriatrics Unit, Department of Internal Medicine, National Hospital, Abuja. Madam, you're also welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
All right, and part of the conversation today, and with us here in the studios, is Engineer Ahmed Lawal. He's a national trustee of the Nigerian Union of Pensioners at the national headquarters here in Abuja. Engineer Lawal, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And joining us via Zoom from Abia State, Mazi Oti Nwaka is a specialist gerontologist and also community-based social worker and mental health professional. It's our pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. Once again, it's our delight to have all our guests here with us. Dr. Eme Momokaro, you're a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. Now, the center which you had is 1 year already, but the center, of course, is supposed to be the driving force of the new momentum for addressing the issues around the care for the elderly and other matters arising. So what's new and what's changing?
Thank you so much for having me in Good Morning Nigeria. I wish to start by saying that when President Muhammadu Buhari signed the National Senior Citizen Center Act, and then the Federal Executive Council approved the National Policy on Aging, they delivered to Nigeria, especially when now they inaugurated the board and established the National Senior Citizen Center. They delivered to us the frameworks, the legal and the policy frameworks, which we needed, and any country that is serious needs to now set up the machinery to now develop programs, strategize, as you say, and then develop the structures and the partnerships to get the needed help, the needed interventions to older persons. So what that meant is that now there was a shift legally from looking at older persons as welfare recipients, just arbitrarily doing things for them when you feel like doing, nothing compelling, now to shifting issues of older persons into development, looking at it legally. They are bona fide right holders as other population category, and then they have the rights to be included in any national development plan. So that is what this meant, and that is what the National Senior Citizen Center had set up. So within the past 1 year, we, of course, with the policy and the legislation, now had to build their structures, because, of course, we take into consideration the three-tier federal system. The federal government, the state government, and the local government, as also is contained in the Act. So how do we reach older persons who 70% of them are in the rural areas and they had to reach areas? How do we now focus on the already existing ministries, departments, and agencies, and then cause them to shift policy, bit, and make room? Because all these years, older persons had been neglected, had not been included in all the statutory mandates of most ministries. So how do we focus on them, not negotiate, bring an understanding to our mandate and to the situation and the position of older persons, and locate within their statutory mandates those things that also must be done for older people within their mandate, and then that shift that policy in affirmation of older persons. Then how do we focus again on bringing clarity and consistency to communicating our vision? What is the vision of the National Senior Citizen Center? And then bring a wider audience, the entire Nigeria, to understand that Nigeria has to be an inclusive society where every older person can have that right to a dignified, a secured, a happy, and a fulfilled life. and then have opportunity to continue to contribute, opportunity to continue to participate. And then, of course, have access to comprehensive social care, health care, when their functional capacities decline. So within this 1 year, we have focused on developing a strategy that will tell us, these are the threats that you have, these are the difficulties that you're going to meet. Look, you are an agency that shares statutory mandates with many old agencies. So you must develop strategy to ensure that you are positioned to act as an initiating agency, a collaborating agency, a lobbying agency, if I should say that, to ensure that older persons do not miss a bit of what pertains to them. So create that strategy, develop the structures, which we will be very happy to share with you, the structures, the stakeholder structures that we have developed up to the hardest to reach places. And then, of course, develop programs. One part of it is mainstream programs, mainstream older persons into programs that are already existing, and then develop new flagship programs that never existed before, and then get the buy-in of the ministries, departments, and agencies and all the stakeholders, and then get these programs running. And then finally, maintain the sustainable engagement mechanism. Constantly engaging NUP, engaging other retirees, older persons, no matter where they are, that mechanism of engagement. Then creating that alliance with the state and the local government so that we can align our services, so that everything that is done in the National Senior Citizen Center, the new programs, innovations that we bring, is not in Abuja. It gets down to the states, gets down to the local government, and ensure that we have foot soldiers who are passionate and dedicated and will not want to see their older persons left out. So within this 365 days.
All right, Dr. Omakara, I have no doubt, in my mind as to whether your establishment has properly strategized, looking at what the law has now said and establishing the act. You're not just the DG of the National Senior Citizen Center, but someone who has a penchant and passion, for caregiving to the elderly over the years, before you even became the DG of this establishment. And I want to believe, quite frankly, that you have done a noble job in terms of establishing structures and what have you. But I want to know the responses from these different organizations or different strata of government, with respect to this. Because, as you have said, it's an area that has been neglected over the years. In fact, for decades, nobody talked about. Nobody. In fact, I heard that from you for the first time some years ago about the issue of taking care of the elderly, that government can come in there. So what are the responses like? Are you making a headway?
I am very happy to say that in paying courtesy visits to many MDAs, over 32 MDAs, high-level advocacy visits, all resulted in us together setting up technical working group to map those areas and tease out those areas and be able to set, objectives, mutual objectives. So, and then to do that and to bring real understanding to issues of aging, what we did was we asked 32 MDAs, and this also including house committees on women affairs and social development, house committees on disability, to please appoint officers, give us focal persons that we can train and, enhance their understanding of aging issues, situations of older persons. And then please, can we set up aging desk? So these officers can be, aging desk officers. So that's constant. And I want to tell you now that in 32 MDAs, we have aging desk with trained focal officers. So that response was very positive. And as I sit here tomorrow, we are going to have, state directors of social welfare coming from 34 states of the Federation. And this is in partnership with Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, because social welfare now sits across the country. So that shows you that it has been very positive response. And I am very, very happy and very, very fortunate to say that there is not one MDA, not one, that we approached.
What about state government, local government, as you mentioned?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In building our stakeholders structures, you will see that we have penetrated through the state to the local government. And that is why we're inviting the state directors of social welfare, because that is the state now. Because we want also them to share with them our vision, our mission, and our programs, and see how we, in partnership, because the states, of course, you know, the state, they have their state assemblies, how they can also domesticate the act, where they do not have a national policy on aging, they can have their state policies on aging, and we can begin to work together. So yes, the local government and the states are on board.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Mokar. We'll come to you presently. Well, let's bring in now Engineer Ahmed Lawal. Earlier introduced him as the National Trustee of the Nigeria Union of Pensioners. Engineer Lawal, the center, you've listened to the DJ 1 year on. What level of enthusiasm is there about the center amongst your members?
Well, we thank Almighty Allah for this very dynamic, hard-working, committed lady that has brought about this initiation of the senior citizen for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Not only for the Nigerian pensioner, but for those who are aging at the rural area, village, towns, even at our market, everywhere. For the first time, we are happy and we are continue being in line with all the program that he has started, and we are in it. All what we are asking for now is that we thank God for you, media, that we want your collaboration to join partner with the elderly person in Nigeria, the senior citizen in Nigeria, for the first time in Africa, though it's not a new thing in the advanced country. We have seen it, and we have seen, you see what is happening in the Nigerian region. We want it to be replicated in the civil populace, that is the public servant, the people who work in the private, and they are already old, and they needed assistance from the federal government, from the state government, from the local government. Since he has started this whole thing that will be demonstrated in those 3 tiers of government, and we thank God for their response. So therefore, we believe that it has started, it is something that has started and will continue over and over for eternity, because we are Nigerians. We want better things for our people. The majority of you too will be coming home and will come and join us. So we want federal government to place it a priority in every contract that has been awarded from the public service in the local government, state and federal. At least 1% of it be paid to take care of elderly all over the country. They, as you are collecting like VAT, when the government get problem in terms of finance, they introduce VAT, don't divinatory error. So we need your help to make it loud, clear to the federal government that at least 1% of every contract, either in the private or in the public, is set aside for the elderly.
Engineer Lawal, we'll come to funding options,
yes,
for the elderly. But the question I asked you had to do with part of the explanation that Dr. Mokaro provided.
Yes.
To say they have set up structures and they have then started networking with a number of government agencies and government departments.
Yes.
So that's why I said, you pensioners,
yes,
are you part of the arrangements that the center is unfolding? And if you've been part of it, how enthusiastic, I mean, I can't break down that further than that, how enthusiastic are your members about what is unfolding?
I'm a witness to that participation that you are asking for. I've been taking part with my people all over the country that we normally invite them to take part in all these program. Even when the act first came out, it was not a hidden something. He declared it to the whole world, and he called all of us to come and see the beautiful thing that the President Buhari has given to the elderly in the country. That's one. Secondly, the other time, it was on how we are going to go along with what is on the ground. And then he invited the director of National ID Card to come and be part and parcel of it, that he wants the elderly, the seniors, to have a national ID card for the first time. As I'm sitting there as a citizen, as a senior citizen, a pensioner, if not be my ID card from Federal Ministry of Work, I don't have ID card that is originated as a pensioner to give me the respect that I deserve. You know what is going on now. We have PIO, we have road safety, we have police, we have. So if I can bring her to my ID card as a senior citizen, even though they want to do something to me, they will say, "To."
but which is not to suggest that you will not obey the law.
We the elderly, I think the disobedience to the law of our country now, I think it is a strange thing to many of us. We are bound to obey the law, right from primary school.
All right, so that's good. But I just want to let you know too that my colleague and I are also senior citizens. But you are a very senior citizen.
You are more senior. We are senior citizens as well. Yeah.
All right, two of you for a long time, you don't know me.
All right.
We arrived before Nigeria's independence.
Of course, yes. Now, Dr. Ogugua Osiobu. Well, I just want to understand the link, between gerontology, which of course is the scientific study of old age and the problems with aging, the process of aging, and what have you. But I want to find out the nexus, between this profession and what the National Center for Senior Citizens, is offering. Let's see why you are even here this morning with us on this program. Let's just get to understand the nexus.
Okay, thank you very much. So first we have gerontology, which is the social science of aging. And we have geriatrics, which is the medicine of aging. So I'm a geriatrician. So I've been trained to take care of the medical issues of older persons. And really in geriatrics, it's not just about their physical, it's also social, and it's their psychological issues as well. So when we look at an older person, we're looking at them holistically, which is where geriatrics differs from traditional medicine. In traditional medicine, you're looking at diabetes and you're focusing on that, blood sugar, hypertension, you're focusing on the blood pressure. But we focus on so many other issues, particularly social issues, because we know that they have great impact on the health of older person. So I'll give you an instance. I have a 68-year-old who has severe osteoarthritis, needs to have knee replacement, but does not have family members who can come and sit with her in hospital during the period of recuperating from that knee replacement. So she's remained on a wheelchair. That's a social issue. That's some kind of neglect from the family. We pride ourselves that, in Africa, we take care of our own. But we know that it's becoming increasingly difficult for family members to bear the burden of aging and the needs of older persons. So that's where the NSCC comes in. It's really exciting for us as geriatricians and those in the field of aging that we now have a coordinating agency of government. And there is a policy which is the roadmap with which this agency of government will be able to roll out all the programs for older people. So it's really, really exciting at this time. One of the major achievements in the past 1 year that, for me is really exciting is the engagement with the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency and the WHO for us to roll out the integrated care of older persons, ICOP, in short, which WHO has had in existence, their guidelines to help people age at the community level and age well and remain healthy as we age. We think that by 2050, we're going to have 2 billion people globally who are 60 and above. We need to make sure that the majority of those are healthy. Otherwise, we're going to have the whole world, with people on wheelchairs, using walking aids and all that, hearing aids. So we want people to remain as healthy and functional as possible as they age. And ICOP would help us deliver that. And that's a major milestone that the NSCC has been able to achieve for us in this 1 year, in addition to so many other things, raising awareness on so many issues, elder abuse, trying to empower our older ones economically. I'm aware that about 70 Nigerians now have received grants from the Nigerian National Directorate of Employment, courtesy of the collaboration with the NSCC. So there's so much the NSCC is bringing to the table. I am particularly excited because when I got back to this country about 15 years ago and knocked on the door of the Ministry of Women and Social Affairs, said, well, what are we doing for older persons? We need to start doing this. There's no money. You go to, they say go to health. You go to health. It's the same. But now there is an agency that actually will be able to coordinate all of this and give us a smooth ride to make sure that our older people really have improved livelihood.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Osiobu. I just wanted you to clarify one point before I bring in Mazi Nwaka. What has been the interface between the center and, say, the WHO? Because we're talking about ICOP, that is the Integrated Care for Older Persons.
Right.
What is the interface? What's and you said that's one of the achievements. Could you clarify that?
Right. So I have been part of the technical working group, first to establish the strategy document and have a plan, a roadmap for how the programs of the NSCC will be rolled out. I've also been part of the technical team working in collaboration with the NPHCDA, which is National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, the NSCC team, and the WHO office in Abuja here, for us to actually get part of the team actually coming up with a concept that would help us pilot ICOP in some communities in the country before we roll it out nationally. Right.
All right, thank you. Now, via Zoom, we earlier introduced him, Mazi Nwaka. He is a gerontologist as well as a community-based social worker and mental health professional. Lead us into the challenges that we are up against in seeking, one, to mainstream care for the elderly into development, and two, having to achieve, if you may, a sea change in our disposition to the elderly amongst us against the background of some of the dizzying changes that we now have in our social fabric.
Okay, thank you, my brother. Good morning. Caregiving is something that is alien in Nigeria. It is just beginning to start. And we thank God that the president set up National Senior Citizen Center under the leadership of Dr. Makaro. I think the most important thing we get to understand here is this. Caregiving and the well-being of elderly persons has really been a family issue in Nigeria or in other African countries. But now the government is beginning to package a program, just like it's happening in civilized countries, to care for the elderly persons in a very formal and properly organized session. Now that the NCC is in place, what we experienced in the past is that the family are those responsible for the care of their persons. With the inception of NNCC now, the care of the elderly persons and their well-being has spread up to the local communities. Like I'm speaking from Abia State, you see that in the local government we begin to create awareness. We started this almost 2 years ago for people to understand the need for caregiving in Nigeria. It is for elderly persons. It's not just family issue. It's something that concerns everybody. I had you talking to the retiree. The retiree once worked for the government. He has gone home. He doesn't have nothing again to fall back to. He needs to have a social network where he get to be. So something that will care for him and provide for him for tomorrow. That is social security, where it is well established. Then we talk about the poor man or man that never worked with the government or have never contributed anything to the tax to the form of taxation to the country, because you know that our taxing system is not too good in Nigeria, because though we're beginning to pick up down, we know that these people too, they are aging. They need to be they need to be taken care of. And we look at it from the other angle of advocacy. Advocacy is something that is very good. People need to be aware that there is need to care for somebody when they are getting older. Because it's just like a newborn baby. You nurse the child from day one till the child begins to walk, begin to crawl, begin to do all kind of things. At a certain age in somebody's life, you get to the point where you need to be cared by somebody. And how do you do this? You do this by establishing this organization or agency like NNCC that will really put in the professional, put in the CSOs, put in the philanthropists, get everybody together to be able to contribute towards the care of these persons, and make sure that the caregivers are properly trained, because there are simple things that could really.
Well, we've just lost the link with OT there. We hope that our engineers will do something about that so that we can get him reconnected. Okay, he's back, and I hope he's continuing with his deliberation. Let him go ahead.
Yes. So with the creation of NMCC now, people are beginning to be aware of what it takes to care for the elderly in Nigeria, and the meaning of elderly care, and the need that is associated with elderly care. And though it's still early morning elderly care in Nigeria, but I'm sure as we progress and move on, by the time NNCC becomes 2-3 years in Nigeria, people will begin to really get to know what care for the elderly persons is all about. We are all aging. We need somebody to care for us tomorrow. There must be a good plan. If we don't plan for it, then everybody becomes, goes back to what it used to be. The family cares. Assuming a family that doesn't have anybody to care for them, we run into so many families, so many individuals that doesn't have anybody who cares for them. If the community could not do that, then they are on their own. So I think it's a very good thing that the government have started this now, and let them support it seriously. Let it not be like a program that is set up and then suddenly it does not see the light of the day tomorrow. This thing must be consistent, must continue. As we are phasing out, other people should be coming in. And I'm very happy that it's already started down in Nigeria.
All right, we appreciate your contribution, Mazi Oti. Now, Dr. Omokaro, you have already strategized within the past 1 year, and of course you have found a direction of approach to the enormous responsibility that is facing your center. Now, do we know the data of elderly people in Nigeria? Because of course, before you plan, you have to have data, to be able to allot certain, of course, in budgeting and what have you. And from what you have told us, are you saying that the state government have accepted to domesticate whatever policy or strategies rather that you have put in place here? Okay. Are the sub-national level, for us to begin to, because of course, we could have elderly people at the city center here in Abuja, but again, the more number of elderly people are resided in the rural communities across Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Issue of data is very critical, especially disaggregated data. Quite unfortunately, data on older persons had before now been presented in national aggregates. So you never really had where you're looking for older persons and then they're really disaggregated, even within the age brackets of the older persons themselves. So what we did, as I talked about building partnerships and putting structures in place, was to approach MBS. And of course, being aware that there's been very recent national surveys, the Nigerian Living Standard Survey, socioeconomic and, labor force surveys. So we now formed a technical station, NSCC staff and MBS, thank God for the Statistician General, to sit down and take these surveys and then disaggregate. So I want to say, yes, that we have been able to collect from MBS good disaggregated, data on older persons. And then with the National Social Safety Net Coordinating Office, data for vulnerable and poor households. So together, we have that partnership and agreement where they have delivered to us data on older persons, very poor and vulnerable older persons. And we have those data across all the local governments, the state and the local government, broken down in gender, age, and local governments. So we have that data. And then, of course, now we're working with NIMSI. Of course, NIMSI has a statutory mandate on identity management. And so we are entering that partnership. We have that partnership where they are going to, from the persons they have already registered for the ID card, they are disaggregating and giving us the numbers from 60 plus. And it is from those numbers that we'll begin to issue this senior citizens card. So the senior citizen card will still bear the name, that same number. So from these statutory organizations and ministries, we have been able to collect good data. And of course, other administrative data, wherever we want to do anything now, we are working with National Primary Healthcare Development Agency and state primary healthcare development agencies, the executive secretaries. In FCT here, we are collecting data, breaking down data, on older persons' use of the healthcare facilities, location to healthcare facilities, the different ailments, multi-morbidities, anything that will help. Apart from that, even data in primary healthcare about structures, human resource capacity, so all that data. Yes, for every program that we have identified as being very important to us, we are pursuing data in those directions. So yes, we are working with data. However, we hope, as we have the funds, as funds coming, well, that was even our number one priority, to conduct for the first time in Nigeria a multi-indicator survey in aging. The countries that have been able to conduct that indicator, that gives you the baseline that you need, because as it is called multi-indicator. So every indicator that you need concerning aging and older persons, it is that national survey that will deliver to us. So we are hoping that by next year, in the next budget cycle, we should be able to conduct that survey, which is very, very critical to what we intend to do. So yes. And then you asked another question.
About the domestication of...
About the domestication. Okay, this is it. We, as NSCC, have seen the approach. It's very, very good to work from bottom up. By bottom up, I mean, we get the foot soldiers who understand the issue, who are passionate about the issue. And what did we do? Just like we had the National Technical Working Group that my sister, Dr. Osi, referred to. The National Technical Working Group was made up of 9 categories of stakeholders. 9. 1, Association of Older Persons, Nigerian Union of Pensioners. They said it was nothing for us without us. So they are one pillar category. Then the other category are experts in aging, professionals like her, Geriatrics Association, Gerontology Association, social workers, and all that. And then the other category of stakeholders are research and academia, because we intend to develop a national research agenda for Nigeria, because we need the data. And then we have the other category. We have CSOs, civil society organizations, not only in aging, but in gender and women, in disability, in agriculture, and all those related areas, CSOs, CBOs. And then, of course, faith-based organization formed another pillar. And then representatives of traditional institutions, like Elders Council, another pillar, and then the private sector. And of course, the ninth pillar, which should be number one pillar really, is MDAs, state actors. So these are the 9 categories that we have worked with. And I want to safely say here that as we sit, these categories, the state actors on this side, these other 8 categories, in about 34 states now, only 2 remaining to go, we have formed, all of them have mobilized. They have come together to form the state consultative forum, the state consultative forum on aging, with 2 co-chairs who are influential people, old people, influential people who can meet government, and then 6 vice chairs. With these 6 vices, each vice is a focal person on these thematic areas: health and social care. You have vice chair agriculture and nutrition. You have vice chair continuing engagement and learning opportunities. You have vice chair livelihood programs, pension matters, and social assistance. You have vice chair data research documentation, and then other categories mobilized behind them. These are very formidable structures that we have in 34 states. The other 2 states are struggling to join. And tomorrow, as we celebrate the 365 days, all the co-chairs from about 26 states are coming here for their inauguration. And then, of course, you have the state directors of social welfare coming here. And then the next day, which is Friday, we are building capacity. We want all of them to be on the same page. Now, going back, they are going back with the act and going back with the policy. So now, the state actors will not be working alone. So you already have these formidable structures that are the advocates, are influential in government, to move government, to go to their state assemblies, to go everywhere, because they now know the stakes, and most of them are older persons. So they know the stakes. They have seen from the federal angle what a policy and legislation can do. Because without that framework, you are working in bits and pieces. So everybody is now determined. And now with capacity built, understanding of the content of the act, understanding of the policy, and seeing exactly how NSCC has been able to lay out these programs, innovation partnerships, and they see what can happen in the states. So yes, the roadmap is very clear. The structures are there. The enthusiasm and the passion is there. So we're just waiting for them to deliver in each states. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Mokara. At some point I was chuckling and my colleague Kieran wasn't looking in my direction.
I was wondering
This is
why.
because you said that the ID card for senior citizens will be out, of course, with the NIMSI issued card. And I think, Kieran, of course, you will get yours before mine.
Of course,
Yeah, you'll get yours before.
I will.
Because I recall that, you had told me
Yes, I
at
told
some
you,
point that I think you fought in World War II or all right. That's life.
But make sure you have registered for the NIN first, because
Yeah, need, of course, if we didn't have our need, our phones would not be functional in the first
that is
instance.
true.
Or perhaps maybe we forgot. This aging is setting in now. Dr. Osiogo, I'd like to repeat part of the question that I asked Mazi Nwaka a moment ago. And it has to do with the following. Can we have an appreciation of the challenge that we are up against in seeking to mainstream aging into development and through advocacy? And therefore, under prevailing conditions, is aging in Nigeria a potentially dreadful experience?
That's a really loaded one. So maybe Alhaji Ahmed would have been, since he's experiencing it, can actually, come from personal experience. But really, I don't know that I would want to use the word dreadful. But older adults in Nigeria can have a better life. there's a lot of dependence. I mean, in fact, just sitting here, I'm thinking of both of you. You say you came before the Nigerian independence, which means you're already 60 and above. You have this opportunity to continue to contribute to society. You have a platform that allows you to continue to engage. And you love what you do. You're able to continue to do what matters to you. A number of Nigerian older adults do not have that opportunity. And that's what we hope NSCC will bring on board. Create that platform. In my clinic, for instance, a lot of my patients, when I say, so Mama, we'll see you in 3 months. Is that not too long, doctor? It's not because of the health issues. It's the social connection. As they're sitting and waiting for the doctor at the reception, they're having a conversation with themselves. It's an outing. So we need to have vocational or senior citizen centers that would allow that platform for engagement. For, to go out, talk about their grandchildren, talk about, somebody might come and give a talk on finances, wealth creation, developing new vocations. These are the things that we see in the developed world. You go to a senior citizen center in the US, you find 80-year-olds doing choreographic dancing.
Yes.
Because it's what they have desire for. You have someone pick up carpentry. You have someone pick up a new musical instrument to learn to play. Some are even forming themselves into an orchestra. So we need to provide options for our senior citizens to live as they desire to. Not too far from us here in FCT, an 80-year-old woman is traveling 2-3 kilometers to go and fetch water. It should not happen. 70 plus are still tilling the ground because of for them to have a livelihood. It should be an option. It should be out of this being my hobby, not because I must do this to live. I must do this to eat the next meal. So yes, that sort of gives you an idea what our older adults are up against. The other issue is affordability of healthcare. So right now, majority are dependent on their family members, children, wards, whoever they are, to pay for their drugs. So many have 3-4 conditions existed in the same person, what we describe as multi-morbidity. And you might find them spending 30,000-40,000 a month, even for someone who had been in the formal sector. That's a lot of expenditure. And we know that health insurance drops once you retire. Again, this is a major gap. Having to pay out of pocket, so it means the older persons are not really getting the care as they need it. The other challenge is that of a trained healthcare workforce. I am one of less than a dozen geriatricians in the country. The recent MBS statistics tells us that we have 14.8 million Nigerians who are 60 and above. So we don't have trained workforce to even give good quality care to these older adults. And we talk about older adults needing care in different settings. There are those who require palliative care. There are those who require long-term care. And we don't have the capacity for all of that. So I hope I've given you...
So it's not potentially dreadful from what you are... but
it's definitely looking up.
Yes, but let's make a distinction here. We have what I would describe as the elite elderly people. There are the ones, in my locality, for instance, in the village, who never saw forwards of any school or something. But these are aged persons, these are Nigerians, and they paid their taxes when they were, up and doing as younger people in Nigeria. Now, what is the plan for them? But I want to ask Engineer Lawa, before perhaps Madam comes in here. what do you need, or how do I put it now? What would the elderly need to take comprehensive care of them? First, we used to have elderly people's homes in Nigeria. Kisla and I, at the incipient of this program, we discussed it. I used to have no one in Enugu, and then he used to know one in Lagos, and what have you. And we no longer see such things anymore. Do we need such centers across Nigeria, elderly people's home? But I also know that those days, some elderly people, wouldn't want to be there, for one reason or the other, and so on. Do we require that? Because this group of elderly people who perhaps did not even do any government work in their lifetime, but who are Nigerians, who are entitled to whatever thing you are entitled to, how would they be captured, in the picture of what the NSCC is planning?
Yes, I believe everything starts from the background. The abandonment of our traditional old system that ought to be transformed to the modern stage were abandoned by those new generation that we are having now. You mentioned of the old headless system in the olden days. If those things have been continued, reforming and modernized, I believe by now we will have got a standard. And we thank God somebody thought about it, Dr. DG of the National Senior Citizen Center. Look, you have a work to do for the elderly, you too here. Look at us here. When I was in school in America, as far back as 70s, the elderly in America, if the government there were not the government there, you will have the elderly that have worked in the public in America. They are giving them all sorts of social security. If you go to a supermarket, you have agricultural food ticket. The only thing that government do not approve for them then was that you cannot use that ticket to buy alcoholic. You can only go there, take the food you made, go and cook it, and then at the home there are estate for the elderly and their family, not just elderly. They mix with their family because I happen to stay with them. So therefore, we in Nigeria here, we have all what it takes. There's enough for all of us. But the greedy one are not going to allow it. What we have is more superlative than what they have. So it is my honor appeal. Look at it. If you go to America and those days you school, you must go through American fundamental constitutional study as elective. Constitutional democracy as if you don't pass it, you will not graduate, either you are from any country. So therefore, the Constitution of the American, you must know it. The law of America, you must know it. But look at us in Nigeria. We have constitutional democracy as far back as 1999. I'm asking you, what time has any one of you go to primary school, secondary school, to find out what do you know about Nigeria Constitution? Federal Ministry of Justice is there. Federal Ministry of Information is there. Oh God. These are the work. You have to impart knowledge to us to have a standard society.
Okay.
So this is where we need to start from, and we thank God. Somebody somewhere, they have started something for the elderly. When we say senior citizen is not just people who are just a civil servant. We're talking about those farmers in the villages.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, thanks a lot, Engineer Lawa. I think part of the issue that my old colleague Kieran raised, my old colleague, yes. And he would also refer to me as old colleague. And by the way, old. No, he looks older. Probably not. probably in reality not older than myself until we see his ID card. Just to clarify this to our viewers, when we say we arrived before independence, look, in general, they will say children who were born in 1960 are independence children. But technically, if you were born on the 30th of September 1960, you arrived before Nigeria's independence. So I think that's it's useful to clarify that. But you also, of course, dates to World War II, as we have already no argument about that. Okay, but I think that there's again, in seeking to understand what's playing out in terms of our aging population in Nigeria. I have a conversation with my age mates now, and sometimes we crack jokes to say that, oh, assuming it was in the past, by now they will be referring to us as a pa. That is, which is the honorific for an elderly person. People can still call you a pa, but is it possible now that on account of higher levels of exposure and education and learning, we are able to mitigate some of those challenges of old age? And therefore, you are also not readily susceptible to the APA syndrome. Because I mean, you can demarcate yourself by saying you are a pa, but you can also present yourself as a younger person, as things should just be all right. I'm asking this, I'm laying this as a foundation to say, okay, we are talking about the moment right now. In urban areas, there are persons who are much older. What are the challenges that older persons in the urban areas face versus the challenges that persons in the rural areas face? I want you to quarantine this question. When we return from this break, you take up the answer, Dr. Omokaru. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're discussing issues around aging as well as the first anniversary of the National Senior Citizens Center. If you're watching this and you're a young person, do not assume that this subject matter doesn't concern you. We all pray to be old and to be much older, and the earlier you started learning about aging, the better it would be going forward, if not for you, but also for those who are ahead of you. All right, so I want to come back to Dr. Omokaru with regard to the question I asked in terms of the dichotomy between the senior citizens in urban locations and senior citizens in rural locations. What are the differential challenges? And so what advantages in terms of, I mentioned education, exposure earlier, that those in urban areas have? How might this be replicated in rural areas so as to reduce, if you may, the burden of aging amongst those in rural locations?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I want to first say that in NSCC, we are very mindful of the diversity of this population category, both in terms of socioeconomic status, in terms of location, in terms of health status, in terms of opportunities to access services, even be it continuing engagement or health services or any kind of services. And you would notice that in the older population, issues of income security and issues of health and access to health and cost of health, they face the same issues because of the tendency for older persons to, like she said, multi-morbidities, health situations, they face the same. And then for income, whether you are living in the urban center or you are living in the rural area, once you face that extended income gap and you do not have the opportunity, either by social assistance, a social safety net, or access to your pensions, is the same income insecurity and the same stress. So issues of health, issues of income security, issues of continued opportunity to engage capacity, to build your capacity, and then of course issues of age-friendly environment, the barriers and the ageism how people discriminate against you, how people, shove you aside because you're old. Those are baseline issues. However, when it comes to the rural community, you see that the issues are more peculiar and more critical. Why? Because infrastructure is not decentralized. You go to the urban communities, you can't even find a primary healthcare center, and the structures, those wards that should provide extension services into the communities are hardly there for older people. So now you find a situation where the older person there facing the same health condition that is faced by the urban person now grows into disablement, becomes impaired. Why? Because the eye had been troubling, and for so long, nobody's checking the eye. It doesn't have access to doctor. It doesn't have access to intervention. Before you know, it's going blind. A simple operation that would have removed the cataract now has rendered the person blind. So the issues become more intensified in the rural area because of logistics and because of income. We still go back to income because they are all intersecting issues. And then you find the mindset. When we talk about ageism, it's in the rural communities that you find misperception of issues of dementia, mental health. Somebody becomes incoherent. Oh, it's witchcraft. And they stone, they ostracize, they even maim, kill. So that understanding of the processes of aging and those factors that may come in is not there. The access to health, the access to clean water, sanitation is not there. So those social determinants of healthy aging that you have access to in the urban centers are denied in the rural area. So you find ill health, and then of course, most of the older persons that you see in the urban centers are retirees. They had an opportunity to work for government, and so they are liable to, they have opportunity to earn their pensions. So there's hope, money is coming. But these ones, all their lives, they have been in the informal sector, working for themselves. Some, especially women, have never worked, are not educated. You talked about education. So they work until they are old, and they continue to till the ground, not because, it's a healthy living, they exercise, but because it's subsistence. They must eat. So poverty is grinding more in the rural area. Issues of health is very, 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 very critical and very, very dire in the rural area. Continuing engagement, issues of, you can go and, visit. All they have is spirituality. Their spirituality is the church. So you find all of them there in the church. And then, of course, they have their small networks. So you find somebody that is 60 years in the urban center, and you go to the rural area, you find somebody that is 40, 50. It's looking like somebody that is 70 years. So the power issue is more there in the rural area. Yeah. Because you say, okay, this old man, because it's basically visible that you have aged because of critical conditions, because of poverty and all that. So in NNCC, our cardinal focus is on inclusion and participation. Our cardinal focus is to ensure that the entire diverse population, the way we have planned our programs and designed our programs and mainstreaming programs. For instance, we take income security. I'll give you an instance now. So what programs do we have under income security? First and foremost is to ensure that all the ministries, departments, and agencies who have statutory mandates on employment, anything that has to do with income security, anything that has to do with entrepreneurship, mainstream older people. And I'm very happy to sit here and say, National Directorate of Employment have mainstreamed older people into their mature people's program. We are also asking them to, we are working to develop all the programs because they have a whole long list of, the program for women, older women will be mainstreamed there. And so we've been able to get percentages. And then on our own, we have developed entrepreneurship livelihood programs. Right now, in collaboration with NDE as well, We have mapped indigenous crafts. You'll be amazed. In fact, our office that we're about to open tomorrow, is going to be a conversational center. Every art piece that you see there, as you open our gate, all the pots you see there with flower, we bought from older women. The carpet that you see what older people are doing in these communities. Fantastic. They are all fantastic artisans. I've been opportune to watch videos, and we are going to exhibit those videos from all the states that are coming. They have mapped 3 indigenous crafts by older people, and they are coming to present. So we are giving them grants. We are empowering them. We are building, helping them to improve their implements. And we are trying to incentivize the youth to join so that it becomes community prosperity. So many things. And then for those ones who are not in this category that are working, thank God for the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Social Disaster Management and Social Development. They are giving us, a proportion of any social assistance program. And then, of course, tomorrow we are going to be launching the dedicated older person social safety nets. So you see, for each category, there are also programs that are signed. And then for the special needs, persons with dementia, families in distress, thank God for the new National Social Protection Policy that's coming. We took the opportunity of that revision and reform to mainstream older people into social care as social assistants and all that. And you talked about the National Health Insurance Scheme. Of course, the new National Health Insurance Authority Act has indicated and included older persons as the vulnerable group, and they do not have to pay premium for these kinds of older people in the rural community. So we intend to pursue that. And of course, the ministerial committee that just concluded the report on health insurance for retirees and older persons finished and gave a good report. And that report, of course, we're going to look into the basic, the basic care, what constitutes that package, a basic health package. That, of course, should take into cognizance the context of aging. That is not the same as the youth. And then make some provisions for that. So yes, we are considering rural, urban, and all those factors and indicators that bring the differentials.
Yes, well explained. Every aspect of this has been touched. It's very comprehensive, and anybody can understand where you're coming from. I just hope and pray that time will come when those the elderly ones in the rural areas could be also be factored in terms of monthly stipends. Somebody has said that when he was governor, he was doing that in his state, giving them something 5,000 naira every month for all the elderly persons in that state. If that can be replicated across the nation, that will also help a great deal, especially for those who are in the rural
and let me just chip in here. Now there is a grant, I think tomorrow they are going to launch it nationwide, a one-off grant, and we were given considerable allocation, 70 older persons for each state across the 36 states. And you will be shocked, the video, the nature, the state of poverty of older people. Because we said, as you're giving us the list of the names, I'm talking about these stakeholders that went, send us pictures, send us videos. So we have videos of them. And they are going to be paid all that. So older persons have really been factored into the national social investment programs.
Mazi Oti Owaka, we have not really forgotten you, but we're trying to see how the DG can lay everything bare, for us to understand. Because of course, if you know the passion of what she's doing over the years, we'll appreciate the extent she has gone so far. For me, I'm not surprised, because I know we're expecting more in terms of achievement in that center. Now, you understand the process of aging, because you are a trained gerontologist and, of course, a community-based worker and also mental health professional. So this is your area. Now, what should be the role or the roles of the private sector, civil society organizations and NGOs, including religious bodies and a traditional institution? What should be their roles, in ensuring that the objective of this center is achieved, especially at the rural areas?
Hello.
Did you hear me, Mazi Oti Owaka?
Yeah, I didn't hear the last the last verse of it, but I heard you to the point. To
Oh,
that point.
all right. The last part of it, well, it's just the same. It's just to say, look, what should the private sector do to also be part of the program of the NSCC, and of course, what should be the roles of course, of the NGOs, religious bodies, and traditional institutions, in ensuring that the strategies and master plan of the NSCC can be achieved nationwide.
Yeah. Advocacy is very, very important. Are you hearing me? Advocacy and education. People, these organizations you mentioned must they must spread this message to their people. They must inform them. They must be aware that that NNCC has come to help, assist, and form a pattern for the elderly persons to function in Nigeria. The organizations must be part of the advocacy, being that this elderly care project, NNCC, is still a new organization in Nigeria. A lot of people don't know about it, except those that are into it. There need to be more advocacy and teamwork in the area of aging and spreading the message across the length and breadth. And involvement of some of our philanthropists, like I said earlier. A lot of them are doing a lot of things for the elderly persons in their communities. We need to bring them to the national line stream. Let them join hands with NNCC, because all these things boils down to funding. Funding is very, very important. And again, please let me go back to the question you asked about elderly persons, the home care, senior citizens home and stuff. By law, the elderly persons are entitled to stay in their homes, and they do function much better in their homes. So if all the necessary support are given to them, they can do much better in their own environment. That is where they know, that is where they grew up, and that is where they know the culture and tradition. You ship them out into a nursing home or shipping them into old people's home where they don't know, they become total strangers in that environment. So it's encouraged they stay at home. If we have all the support system in place for them to be supported in their various homes, they can do much better there. Then you talk about their mental state. If they are not well cared for, if the mental health are identified, like dementia and Alzheimer's, and there is no proper follow-up in their care, they don't have attendant care to monitor their movement, to understand what they're doing, the villagers do not pack them as witches, I think they will do much better in their environment. So if the organizations that are involved in this advocacy, like the churches, the CSOs, the MDAs, if they continue the advocacy, spread the message across the country, the group, the length and breadth of Nigeria, people will get acquainted with the policies of NNCC, why it was set up, and the benefits of NCC to the Federation of Nigeria. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Mazi Waka, for your comments. There's an issue I want to raise, and that has to do with funding and financing. We've touched on it here and there. I remember Engineer Lawa also drawing attention to food stamps normally issued to senior citizens in advanced countries, particularly the United States. The immediate response to that would be, you have to be a producer nation in the first instance to be able to have the surplus to distribute. So when it is said mostly subsistence agriculture that we have in here, the silos are not full and overbrimming with supplies, then where are you going to have the extras to give out to senior citizens? Which brings us back to even the issue of financing. I wouldn't know if you have experience in medical financing or health financing. Some of the things that we see in advanced countries, except for those that run a welfare system, by which the nation's wealth at some point is harnessed. I mean, Norway, for instance, would say, okay, this money goes into our sovereign wealth fund, to look after not current generation, future generations and future needs, and so on and so forth. If we're living from hand to mouth at every time, how do we fund care for the elderly persons? Engineer Lawal also suggested at the beginning, 1% of the costs perhaps of a project should be set aside for care of the elderly. But I mean, in a number of other advanced countries, we do know that once you start working as a young person, you're already making your contribution to your own social security, which is a challenge. So how do we get around that issue of funding? Because right now it's everyone who is catering for himself. But ultimately, once your advocacy gains traction, once it becomes now a national issue to say, look, the elderly should be cared for and they have their rights and they begin to demand those rights, then there will be a further call on the public treasury. But how can you sustain that? So that's what I'm saying. What can we begin to also think about simultaneously in terms of parallel funding options that at some point going forward, this doesn't then become a burden that, God forbid, collapses and then we say we're back to square one. Doc.
Right. So actually, I'm aware that certain entrepreneurs have made propositions regarding this. One that I'm really much aware about is a certain percentage of what we all spend on the phones going into an account that can actually fund health. We also know that the government has come up with the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, where they are, and really I like what they're doing with the Basic Health Provision Fund because they're tying it to capacity. You must build the capacity and infrastructure of your primary health care center to a certain level to be able to enjoy part of the Basic Health Provision Fund. The ministerial committee that was set up to look at health insurance for retirees is also another option that the government is looking at. So it would have to be multi-pronged. We also would have to involve the private sector, apart from the telecoms industry, even banking. A certain percent. The banks are taking a lot of money from us. Every time you use the ATM and all that, can they give back a certain percentage of that we can, put into a fund to help us with health?
Okay, thank you. We are running out of time, and just very briefly, Dr. Mokaro, tell us some of the things you are prospecting and looking forward to achieving before when you clock 2 years. Just very briefly.
I close my eyes. In 2 years, I want to see very happy older persons in Nigeria with their senior citizens card, accessing discounts and concessions and dignified life. I want to see the primary healthcare services extending services to older persons in the community, geriatric assessment being mainstreamed, and every older person can access that care, which has mental health, oral health, and then, other health. So they can sit in their community and access this health. And also want to see senior centers being built, different models of senior centers. At least we're going to start one standard one in Abuja Central and then in a council area. So we can see the two models. Okay. And I also want to see, older persons, artisans and farmers, because we are positioning the geriatric market and awakening everybody to see what older persons are producing. So we are going to be having village fairs to exhibit what older persons are producing. Okay. Already we have signed an MOU with a private sector for uptakers. So they build capacity and they are taking this.
And we hope that.
So we want to see healthy, dignified, happy older persons.
And as you fold your package, also have, like you said, maybe daughters without boundary, going to villages and celebrate.
Yes, of course.
Okay, we'll stop it there.
And then have retirees from NTA from networking and engagement. We use you as a pilot.
I will spearhead that.
You heard what she said. You use us as a pilot.
All right, Dr. M.M. Omokaro, Director General, National Senior Citizens Center. we would like to appreciate you. Thank you for what you're doing. We are going to have you again on this show.
Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Okay, we'll be there. We'll be there. I don't know about this, but I will be there.
No, definitely it's coming.
All right. Dr. Ogogoa Osiobu, consultant physician and geriatrician, head of geriatrics unit, Department of Internal Medicine, National Hospital Abuja. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning.
It's really been fun.
And of course, Engineer Ahmed Lawal, National Trustee, Nigerian Union of Pensioners, National Headquarters, Abuja. We thank you.
Thank you.
We didn't ask you whether they're still owing you any pension, but that's not for now. That's not for now. It's going to be for another day.
When you talk about production.
Okay. Mazi Oti Nwaka, a US trained gerontologist, a community-based social worker and mental health professional, is been glad talking to you and sharing your thoughts on this program this morning. Thank you.
That's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Thank you for tuning in. Join us again tomorrow for another edition of the program. Same time, 7 in the morning. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kirian, whom I see you again tomorrow.